Have you ever been surrounded by people you know, laughing, talking, participating in conversations, and somehow still felt completely alone? You may even have friends. You may have people who text you, invite you out, and know your name, but somehow you don't feel known. And that's a very different kind of loneliness. Psychologists often distinguish between simply being alone and experiencing emotional loneliness. The feeling that you don't have the kind of connection where you can truly be yourself, understood, and emotionally safe. And sometimes the signs aren't obvious. You can look social, happy, and completely fine on the outside while privately feeling disconnected from everyone around you. Here are 10 traits that can reveal you're experiencing this kind of loneliness. 1. You can talk to people for hours without telling them anything that really matters. You might be one of the most talkative people in the room. You can joke. You can discuss work, relationships, celebrities, money, or everyday problems. But when the conversation gets close to something genuinely personal, you suddenly change the subject. People know what you do. They know what you like. They may even know some of your problems, but they don't know what you're actually afraid of. And that's the strange part. You can have hundreds of conversations and still feel like nobody has ever really met the person underneath them. 2, you often feel invisible even when people are paying attention to you. This isn't necessarily about being ignored. People may listen when you speak. They may laugh at your jokes. They may even ask how you're doing, but something still feels missing because being noticed isn't the same as being understood. You might tell someone, "I'm tired," when what you really mean is, "I'm emotionally exhausted and I don't know how to explain it." They hear the first sentence. Nobody notices the second one, and after enough experiences like that, you can start believing that there's no point explaining yourself, so you stop trying. 3. You leave social gatherings feeling more empty than when you arrived. This is one of the most confusing signs. You went out, you talked to people, you laughed, you were surrounded by voices for hours, so why do you feel lonelier when you get home? Because social interaction doesn't automatically create emotional connection. You can spend 3 hours around people without having one conversation that makes you feel genuinely understood, and when the noise stops, you suddenly notice the emptiness that the noise was covering. That's why some people don't actually hate being around others. They hate the feeling of being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. For you rarely ask for help even when you desperately need it. When something goes wrong, your first instinct may be, "I'll handle it," not because you're necessarily independent by nature. Sometimes you've simply become used to not expecting emotional support from other people. You don't want to explain everything. You don't want to feel like a burden, and perhaps you've asked for help before, only to feel dismissed, misunderstood, or disappointed. So eventually, you develop a habit, you struggle privately, then you show up normally. People think you're strong. Meanwhile, you're quietly wishing somebody would notice that you're not okay without forcing you to explain everything first. 5. You feel uncomfortable when someone tries to get emotionally close to you. This sounds contradictory. You want connection, but when someone actually starts getting close, part of you wants to pull away. They ask deeper questions. They want to know what you're thinking. They notice when your mood changes, and suddenly you feel exposed, so you become less available. You reply later. You joke instead of answering. Seriously, you tell them you're fine. Because loneliness can make you crave intimacy while fear makes you protect yourself from it. You don't necessarily want people to leave. You just don't always know how to let them in. 6. You are often the person everyone comes to, but nobody checks on. People tell you their problems. They call when they're heartbroken. They ask for your advice. They trust you with things they don't tell other people. And you listen, but when it's your turn, you don't know who to call. Sometimes you've accidentally built relationships where you're the emotional support system, but nobody has become yours. That's a particularly painful kind of loneliness because everyone knows you're dependable. Very few people know when you're falling apart. 7. You feel like you have to perform a version of yourself around people. You might notice that you're slightly different depending on who you're with. With one group, you're funny. With another, you're quiet. Around certain people, you carefully choose your opinions. You know exactly what to say to avoid being judged. And sometimes you leave a conversation thinking, that wasn't really me. The problem isn't necessarily that you're fake. It may be that you've become extremely good at adapting yourself to whatever environment you're in. But constantly editing yourself makes genuine connection difficult because people may like the version of you they're shown, while the real you remains hidden. 8. You crave being understood, but you rarely explain what you actually need. This one is subtle. You may secretly wish someone would notice when you're upset. You want someone to realize when your "I'm fine" doesn't really mean fine. You want someone to remember the little things you said weeks ago. You want someone to ask a second question instead of accepting the first answer, but you may rarely tell people any of this. Instead, you hope they'll figure it out, and when they don't, you feel disappointed, not necessarily because they did something terrible, but because their failure to notice confirms the feeling you've already been carrying. Nobody really gets me. 9. You can become emotionally attached to very small moments of attention. When you've been emotionally lonely for a long time, small amounts of genuine attention can feel surprisingly powerful. Someone remembers something you said. Someone notices that you're quieter than usual. Someone checks on you without needing anything. Someone listens without turning the conversation back to themselves. And you might think about that interaction for days, not because you're desperate for attention, but because being genuinely seen can feel rare when you've spent a long time feeling emotionally invisible. Sometimes what you miss isn't having more people, it's having one person with whom you don't have to constantly explain yourself. 10. Deep down, you've stopped expecting people to truly understand you, and this may be the most important sign of all. At some point, loneliness can stop feeling like something you're experiencing and start feeling like something you simply accept. You stop expecting people to check on you. You stop expecting anyone to notice the changes in your mood. You stop telling people what you're really going through. You become comfortable saying, "I'm okay," and eventually, you may become so good at functioning alone that other people don't realize how lonely you actually feel. That's the paradox. You don't necessarily need more people around you. You need more meaningful connection, because loneliness isn't always about the number of people in your life. Sometimes it's about whether you feel safe enough to be completely yourself with someone, and whether you believe they'll still be there when they see the parts of you that aren't easy to understand. So if you've ever felt lonely in a crowded room, remember this. There's nothing strange about wanting deeper connection. You can love people and still feel emotionally disconnected from them. You can have friends and still feel lonely. You can be surrounded by people and still wish someone would simply look at you and say, "Kamada, I know you're not okay. You don't have to pretend with me." And sometimes that's the connection you've been missing all along. If you recognize yourself in several of these traits, don't just ask yourself, "Why am I so lonely?" Ask a deeper question. Where in my life can I finally stop performing and start being completely myself? Because sometimes the beginning of connection isn't finding more people, it's finally allowing the right people to see you. If this video described you, tell me in the comments which number hit you the hardest. And subscribe for more psychology videos that put complicated feelings into words.